are going to start a series in a book called The Emotional Healthy Spirituality. When the PPR committee and the Ad Council were meeting, we were setting goals for 2015. And one of the things we talked about was me setting a goal, or us setting a goal. And I said to the group, I want to set a goal to do a sermon series on healing. And they all said, great, we'll do it. Well, in the process of all the schooling I've been going through, I discovered this wonderful series of books. The first one is this one, Emotional Healthy Spirituality. The author is Peter Scazzero. He went on to make another book called The Emotional Healthy Church. And then the ladies are studying The Emotional Healthy Woman. So there's a whole series about being emotionally healthy and tying it back to our relationship to Christ, our relationship to God, and how we begin. So we're going to take the next few weeks and we are going to explore what it means to have an emotional healthy spirituality. And ladies who are in the study, this just kind of piggybacks on what we're doing as well. Now, the name of it, Susie, do you have your bulletin handy? What's the title of the sermon?
Oh, you're scaring me.
I'm sorry.
Bulletin. Sermon. Tip of the Ice Burg Spirituality.
All right. So here's the thing. You got that piece of paper, that pencil? Mr. Scazzero, Pastor Scazzero, tells us that our spirituality is very much like an iceberg. Okay? 10% of our life is visible. 90% of our life is beneath the surface. I didn't do a very good job of making an iceberg in that handout, but it's close enough to get the point. But what he tells us is that 10% is all that we show. And there is so much more beneath the surface that we aren't willing necessarily to show. But in order to be to have a healthy spirituality, or emotional healthy spirituality, we've got to deal with what's down here before this, because this is all we are willing to show, but we have got to deal with what's down here. And I was thinking it'd be a great start to this understanding this would be a great start to our series on healing. So above the line is 10% of our lives that is visible and that we show to others. And below the line is 90% of our lives we hide or do not share to others or show to others. You all know that I grew up in a pastor's family, that my mom and dad were in ministry for 52 years before my dad passed away. And so I grew up in the parsonage all of my life. And my mother used to say that she did a really good job on painting a good, beautiful picture on the outside of our fishbowl. That would be the upper 10%. That she did a great job painting a pretty picture on the outside of that fishbowl. And back in the days when I was growing up, we were truly in a fishbowl. Everybody looked at what we were doing. I will never forget my dad getting a call asking if they were going to let me go see a certain movie. Because if they would let me go see the movie, they would let their children go see it. Or them calling and saying, what's appropriate? What's Mimi going to wear? Or what's appropriate? Because if it's not appropriate for our pastor's family to wear, then it's not appropriate for us. So we truly lived in a fishbowl. I remember one time we were out of the house. I think we were probably up in South Dakota at the time, and we were visiting someone. And it got back, they said, well, we see you were at so-and-so's house today. And we're like, how did you, well, we saw your car, we know what you know. It's like I felt like they were stalking us. They weren't, but the fact is that we truly were in a fishbowl. And so my mom made that statement so that the upper part of our outside life looked really good. Not that it wasn't good, but she said she always made sure that the fishbowl was painted beautiful and everybody saw the best part of it. So let's talk about what's at the under, the 90%. I'm going to mention some things in general, and I want you, nobody else is going to see this. This is yours. And so I want you to write, as I'm mentioning some of these, and I'll take my time. If there's specifics, I want you to write some of those things that you might be holding beneath the surface. Okay? Let me run through some of them. I got a long list. And like I said, I'm going to mention a general thing, but you can be specific to your own need. Like I said, nobody else is going to see this. These could include pain, sadness, anger, overwhelmedness, that's a word, secrets, lies, nervousness, anxiousness, a little different, disappointments, pretending, expectations, vulnerability, betrayals, shame. I'm going to give you a few minutes to fill out anything else that's personal to you. What else are you holding back? You can keep writing if you need to, but let me move on. The key is to find freedom from those things that are below the surface. Release from those things that we hold down or that we hide. The key is that we are to be free of those things, so it's not just 10% of the iceberg that's shown, but that we can be honest and true to who we are and to the God that created us. True freedom, true faith comes from letting go of the things that prevent us from having a totally emotionally healthy spirit. Let me repeat that. True freedom, true faith comes from letting go of the things that prevent us from having a totally emotionally healthy spirit. And ladies and gentlemen, you can't live a double life. You're either true to God or you're hiding. You can't live both. That's why my example of this and the thing I think of is the Titanic. You know, they didn't see, all they saw was this. They didn't see what was underneath the surface when the Titanic hit the iceberg. When we only show this much, we don't know what's going to attack if we're not faithful and true to what Jesus Christ has for us. If we're hiding all this under the surface, He's not able to work with us if we're not willing to come clean, if you will. You cannot live a double life. Ignoring any aspect of who we are as men and women made in God's image always results in destructive consequences. Ignoring any aspect of who we are, who God made us to be, will always result in destructive consequences in relationship with God, in relationships with others, and really in relationship to the honesty of who we are. So we can't live a double life. We've got to let go of those things that are holding us back. For example, We can recognize people who may have physical disabilities or maybe a lack of mental disabilities. That's pretty visible. You can see that. If someone is in a wheelchair or if someone is emotionally, not emotional, but mentally disabled, you can see that. What you can't always see is emotional. However, emotional underdevelopment is not so obvious when we first meet people. Emotional underdevelopment, meaning we're not willing to face up to the emotions, to the things that we do. I had someone ask me not too long ago, why, and he said, you're a pastor, you should answer this. And I'm like, okay. Why is it that I have been giving all of this crap that's been going on in my life to God and God's not listening? And I'm like, okay, how do I answer that? Knowing the person as well as I do, and I knew him, I said, I know why. And he said, why? I said, because you've not been honest. If you are not honest with God about the stuff that's going on, or honest with the people around you, and be straightforward with people, God's going to have a hard time working through all of that hardness that you've built up if you're not honest. And there was a trick question one time. I was in a training session, and they said, is honesty the best policy? And we all said, oh yeah. And he said, no, you're dead wrong. Honesty isn't the best policy because that says there's another option. Honesty is the only policy. And if we're not honest with God and honest with others where we are and what we're about, God's got a hard time working through that surface, that facade. So honesty has got to be in there. We have got to understand that there's a lot of emotional garbage and baggage we carry with us. The emotional component cannot be ignored in our seeking of God. A lot of us are taught that the way to approach life was through facts, faith, and feelings, in that order. The fact that Jesus Christ, the faith of Jesus Christ to us and our faith to Him, and then our feelings. But in doing that, we fail to pay attention to God. Only concentrating on those three things. And what is going on inside of us, which may cause us to miss many gifts. So what do we do with that information? How do we get there? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here's the question, here's the thought. We need to discover the link between emotional and spiritual health. We need to discover the link between emotional and spiritual health. I'm going to read directly from the book because I cannot paraphrase this. The Apostle Paul recorded what happens when we live authentically the question is God's way. He brings gifts into our lives, much the same way the fruit appears in an orchard. And we talked about the fruit of the Spirit that you read, Joey, today. Now, this is what he did, and I want you to listen carefully. Listen carefully. Using two popular versions of the Bible, let me demonstrate how Paul described these beautiful fruits in Galatians 5:22-23. What he did was he took the New International Version, the NIV, it's what was in our pews, and he matched it, verse by verse with the Message. So I want you to hear it. I'm going to read them across, and I want you to hear what is in there for us. This is how Paul describes knowing the fruit of the Spirit. Love, affection for others, joy, exuberance about life, peace, serenity, patience, a willingness to stick with things, kindness, a sense of compassion in the heart, goodness, a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people, faithfulness, involved in loyal commitments, gentleness, not needing to force our way in life. The one I always have trouble with, self-control, able to marshal and direct our energies wisely. God promises if you and I will do life this way, even though it feels unnatural and hard to us initially, then our lives will be beautiful. I want to go back and I want you to shut your eyes and listen to this or jot it down. Because if this is what it means to be emotionally healthy, is living in a way that we're not, what have I said over and over again, the basis of sin is selfishness. The basis of emotional unhealthiness is selfishness. We're not willing to be honest and open. And so Galatians tells us exactly how we are to live our life. Let me read it to you again. It bears really listening and hearing. Love, affection for others, joy, exuberance about life. Now, I don't know about you, but I have not seen it anywhere it says the words when you feel like it, or when it's comfortable, or when it's convenient, or when I'm told to. Okay? Love, affection for others, joy, exuberance about life, peace, serenity, patience, a willingness to stick with things, kindness, a sense of compassion in the heart, goodness, a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. We're basically all good at heart. Faithfulness, involved in loyal commitments. Gentleness, not needing to force our way in life. Self-control, able to marshal and direct our energies wisely. The sad reality is that most of us will not go forward until the pain of staying where we are is unbearable. That may be where you are today. Receive your circumstance then as His gift to you and open your heart as you read this book or this section to meet Him in new and fresh ways. We can't change, or better said, invite God to change us when we are unaware and do not see the truth. There are a lot of times in life, I think, that we just we do as we are asked to do. A phone call, can you do this? Sure, go ahead. And we don't really, we just kind of go about life. Now, I'm not saying that you do, but I know sometimes I just want to sit and go, I don't really want to do anything today. But we go through life, but the key to what I hear in these words, the key to what I'm reading in Galatians, is that we have to be intentional. We have to be, if we want to be emotionally, spiritually healthy and get in touch with what God truly has for us, then we have to be intentional about it. We have to be intentional on how we love one another, how we share our exuberance about life, about knowing peace, about being willing to stick with things, and compassion of the heart, and a basic holiness and understanding that everyone is basically good. It's an intentional thing. It can't just happen if we don't put our intentions behind it. We are in the time of Lent, and in the time of Lent is the time of preparation for the resurrection, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I think this is a perfect time for us to study about being emotionally healthy, or emotional healthy spirituality. If we don't put that engage that in some way, we're going to be down under here more than we want to be. What we want to do is we want to have everything up here. Be transparent. Be honest and open. Now I have a challenge for you. As we move into communion today, there's a basket there and a basket there. They will not be looked at. I'm going to take them and I will probably burn them or do something with them. But if you're willing to take those things that you've written and hand them over to God, there's a basket on either side for you to do that. If you want to take it home and dispose of it and deal with it your own way, that's fine too. But when we invite you, I invite you to come up for communion, and you would like to do that. No one will look at them. It is private. Just fold it in half, leave it in the basket, and I will take care of it. But this is a time, if we're really, truly in the heart of Lent and understanding what Christ did for us, we've got to get back to the basics. We've got to get all that stuff beneath the surface, what lies beneath the surface, out, dealt with, so that we can be transparent and we can be loving and people know for whom we love and why we are here. Does that make sense? I love his book. I'm loving it. I'm reading through it, and I just think it makes so much sense to me. Because we've got to get to the root of the problem, and then we've got to find out how to get healed from the problem. So are you with me? Nobody answered. Okay, good. All right, let's pray, and then we'll move into a time of communion. Most gracious God, I ask you to help us walk through understanding what it means to be emotionally healthy, having emotional healthy spirituality. Being emotionally sound to be your light, to be your words, to be your feet and hands. Lord God, walk with us as we learn how to let go of the stuff that's beneath the surface. Because there's so much more that you have for us if we let go of all the garbage. And there's so much more we can do once we get all that stuff underneath the surface out. So may we do that through your Holy Spirit, through your cleansing, and through this time of Lent. And we will give you praise. Amen. Amen. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, he took the bread and he broke it. And he said, "This is my body which is broken for you. As often as you eat of it, do this in remembrance of me." Likewise, he took the cup and he blessed it and he said, "This is my blood which was poured out for you for the forgiveness of sins. As often as you drink of it, do this in remembrance of me." So the invitation is here for you to come. Tear out the piece of bread, dip it into the cup, and remember what Christ did for you. Remember what Christ has done for each one of us. And whatever is still beneath the surface, this is the time to let go and let God. So would you come, please?